Donald Trump is back in the White House, and he's wasting no time implementing his vision for America's next chapter. In his first 24 hours alone, he signed over 200 executive orders and directives, everything from withdrawing from the Paris Climate Agreement to sending troops to the Mexican border. He's covering all sorts of areas and is marking a dramatic shift in policy direction from his predecessor, Joe Biden. So, what is an executive order exactly? How do they work? Does the president just click his fingers and magic a new law into existence without needing approval from Congress? Can he do anything with this power? How many orders can he sign? Can anyone stop him? We're going to look at all those questions in this deep dive into presidential executive orders. My name is Connor Haines, and this is the inaugural episode of Haines Explains. Cue the intro! So let's start with the basics. An executive order is an instruction, essentially, delivered by the President of the United States to federal agencies, indicating to them how they should manage their operations or enforce existing laws. It's a tool for the President to exercise executive authority without needing approval from Congress, meaning that they can be signed off and enacted almost immediately. In theory, there are concrete rules about what a president can and cannot do with executive orders. For example, they can't be used to pass new laws or to spend new money without authorization from Congress. In practice, however, a lot of presidential executive orders drift into this grey area. You see, even though executive orders aren't actually laws, technically, they often contain tangible elements that allow them to effectively function like a new law, especially if they result in a significant policy change. An example would be one of Trump's latest executive orders, where he declared a national emergency on the US-Mexico border. Now, in reality, this is more than just a symbolic declaration. It is a legal status that authorizes the deployment of troops to the border. This would allow President Trump to kickstart the process of tightening up the border in the way he wants without having to wait for a long legislative process to go through Congress. Technically not a new law, but a change in the functioning of a federal agency which effectively acts like a new law. This ambiguity gives the president immense power to enact significant changes, although it's not without its checks. Any federal court in the United States can block an executive order if they believe it's unconstitutional. Many of Trump's latest executive orders are already facing legal challenges which will delay their implementation and potentially throw them out altogether, depending on what the courts decide. Congress itself can also pass legislation that effectively overrides an executive order, and future presidents can actually cancel executive orders put in place by their predecessors. Generally, though, executive orders offer presidents a relatively easy way to take quick action. So, is that fair? Should presidents have that level of relatively unrestrained authority? What is Congress for if the president can effectively bypass it? That's a very interesting question. I'm glad you asked. Well, it's certainly an issue that splits opinion. On one hand, it makes sense. Presidents are elected by the people to enact their wishes, and they should therefore be given the power to do that. Historic actions like Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation, which was issued through his war powers as an executive order, or Franklin D. Roosevelt's implementation of key parts of his New Deal through executive orders, illustrate the enormous power and influence that these executive actions can have. But it's very dangerous and potentially even dictatorial to concentrate huge amounts of power in one person's hands. The structure of the US government is specifically designed to account for that, to ensure that there are safeguards in place so that no one person or group can have unlimited, unchecked authority. And sure, there are checks against this particular presidential power, but there's no guarantee that unconstitutional measures won't just slip through the cracks. There have been countless examples throughout history of highly controversial executive orders being passed with the president of the time making dubious claims, such as a a broad interpretation of the executive powers, or framing it as an issue of national security or response to a crisis, meaning there's no need to go through a lengthy congressional process and the courts are less likely to intervene. That said, an executive order passed by one president can be just as easily modified or overturned by the next president. This can lead to policy instability and raises questions about accountability, since these measures aren't subject to the same kind of scrutiny and debate as laws passed by Congress. Ultimately, executive orders tread a very fine line between effective governance and potential overreach. So, what do you think? Are executive orders overpowered? Undemocratic? Or are they just the reality of modern governance? A necessary response to a slow and divided Congress? Let me know in the comments. And while you're at it, you might want to hover over that like button, give it a click if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more Haines Explains. Thank you so much for watching this episode on executive orders, and I'll see you again soon. Bye bye!